Hello and welcome to Common Ground, an inside look at Suffolk County. I'm your host, Sheriff Steve Tompkins. So the first half hour of today's show, we're going to talk to Dr. Dianne Kelly, the Superintendent-Elect of the Revere Public Schools system. We're going to talk about exactly what a superintendent does, but more importantly, we're going to talk about how I believe, at least in my estimation, that teachers are the real heroes out there. Sports figures are great and other occupation entertainers do a marvelous job. But when you talk about taking our kids and really wrapping one's arms around them to make sure that they get the education that they need so that they can be productive citizens as they grow older is really a magnificent thing. So without any further ado, Dr. Kelly, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you being here.
It's my pleasure.
So let's talk about the superintendent-elect. When do you actually become the superintendent?
So I will take over effective July 1st of this year. And fortunately, the school committee in Revere and the mayor in Revere has been forward-thinking. And Dr. Dakin will actually be with me through December. He won't retire until December.
Oh, nice.
And that'll give us some time to transition and for him to mentor me in the new role and kind of have a nice transition as opposed to an abrupt transition, which is often what happens in other districts.
Now, he had been the superintendent since the early 90s, so he had been there for quite some time. How long have you been in the school system yourself?
That's right. So I've been in the district for 20 years now. This is my 20th year. And I started as a high school math teacher.
Okay.
And after that, I was a dean of students at the high school, which is like a vice principal.
Okay.
Then I became the director of mathematics, which morphed into the director of STEM disciplines.
Oh, yeah.
So it included science and technology, engineering, all of that. And 5 years ago, I became the assistant superintendent. So I've been fortunate to work very closely with Dr. Dakin already for 5 years,
Nice.
and then to have a transition plan that enables us to really pass over the leadership in a way that's not going to be disruptive to the students or the schools is really important. And I think it's going to help us maintain the level of success that we've seen in Revere over recent years.
So, as you know, in Boston, we just recently went through the same process with getting a new school superintendent. Did you have the same level of politics there? Were there a number of candidates that were being looked at for the position, or were you pretty much the chosen one, so to speak?
Well, I know that the school committee did their due diligence, and they did consider different options. But I think that Revere historically has had this kind of transition planning process in place. It's really important in schools that districts plan that way so that there can be continuity in the curriculum and continuity in the goals of the school. And it's very difficult on teachers and administrators when all of a sudden a new leader comes in with a different set of goals and a different vision and a different style and method. And all of a sudden all the work that they've been doing for a number of years becomes for naught in order to pursue this different path. So one thing that I'm very much invested in as I take on this new challenge is making sure that we do have a smooth transition, and pretty much we're going to stay the course. Now, of course, I'm going to put my own stamp on things, and my own style and personality, I think, will be evident in the work that we do. But in large part, we will continue along the path that we've been on since education reform really started in 1993. And Dr. Dakin has led us in a very positive direction. We're the only urban district in the state that has level 2 status. So our MCAS scores and our progress, our high school was named the only high school in America to receive a gold medal award from the National Center for Urban School Transformation. So, you know, something is happening right in Revere. And I think, in my knowledge of education, how school districts run, a big part of that has been the consistency and the continuity of having Dr. Dakin as the leader for 14 years, and then bringing me on to succeed him, where I've been his close partner in the school work for the last 5 years and can understand the history and also the goals moving forward.
So you have that kind of continuity of care and education there without too many bumps or no bumps in the road.
Exactly.
Going forward. I'm going to ask you in a moment about your style when you say you're going to put your thumbprint on it. But before we get there, when you say you move up to vice principal, superintendent, assistant superintendent, I think you said superintendent, do you have to test into that, or how does that work? If you want to become, like, say, a vice principal or a principal, is there some sort of class that you have to take or study that you have to do to move up?
There are different licenses that you need to have for each of those different roles. There's one license for principals and assistant principals. There's a different license for curriculum directors. So those are two different licenses I had to get as I transitioned from high school dean or assistant principal to the director of mathematics.
Okay.
And then there's a separate license that enables one to be an assistant superintendent or superintendent.
Okay.
And each of those comes with different practica that you have to do, usually around 300 to 500 hours in the field and in addition to doing coursework in a licensure program in order to obtain the license.
So now, is it the same across the Commonwealth, or does each municipality have a different way, if you know, of determining what they want that criteria to be for a person to move up?
No, it is the same across the state. It is a license requirement from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Okay. So now let's talk about your style.
Sure.
What would your style be like? I mean, I know it's going to be close to what your predecessor put in play, but how will we know your style versus his?
I think that every person is unique and different, and I'll bring that to the job, to the role. One of my main priorities, and it was a priority for Dr. Dakin too, but one thing that I really hope to expand on in our work in Revere is the idea of distributed leadership, where we really have teachers who are our experts. They really are the ones that know exactly what's happening in the classroom and what our kids need. Really changing the structure of our district so that those teachers have a real say in decision making. And we started work with the Working Group for Educator Excellence, which is an education think tank here in Massachusetts. We started work with them about 4 years ago on a human resources pilot project. It was a collaboration between the Revere Public Schools, the Attleboro Public Schools, and the Brockton Public Schools, where we tried to design these models where teachers would have more input in who do we hire, how do we hire people, what training programs do we put in place for new teachers when they come on board, how do we foster aspects of culture across a district, what should our organizational structures look like, things like that. How do we develop career ladders for teachers who want to expand their role and their impact at a school or a district level, but still want to stay in the classroom? Because often what we do is we take our best educators and we turn them into administrators. And the best thing would be to have those best educators be able to impact the school or the district, but also still be in front of the kids and be delivering direct instruction where they can have the greatest impact one-on-one with individual students. So we've developed councils comprised of teachers and administrators in 7 different areas who now they're the ones who develop the ideas and say, for instance, one of the challenges we had in Revere was around our middle schools, where we end up having a lottery for placement, which is dreadful. No one likes it. It's an unpleasant experience for the students, for their parents, and for us. So we had one team, our organizational structure team, spent a whole year researching different models for middle school and looking at ways
across the country?
From across the country.
Okay.
Yep. And they worked with a consultant who had more information and could kind of guide their work and could lead them into different paths of research around whether middle schools should be grades 6 through 8 or just grades 7 and 8, or should grade 8 be attached to a high school. You know, trying to think of ways that we could get away from this terrible lottery process. But we empowered them to do that research and to bring their conclusion to our board. And our board, the superintendent and the assistant superintendent sit on the board, but so do 6 or 7 teachers and 4 or 5 administrators that represent different levels from elementary, middle, and high school, and different disciplines as well.
So has this process concluded yet?
It has concluded, and the council actually found that what we do with middle school right now is the best structure. We have a separate middle school that spans grades 6 through 8. Okay. And they found that that is the best structure, and leaving that in place, and unfortunately the lottery, is the best strategy for us for now. But it was great to have teachers have a voice in that decision and really be able to do the research and do that kind of work that they don't always get access to when they're focused entirely on classroom instruction. They become better teachers in that process, and that helps the kids.
You know, interesting that you mentioned that, because I was appointed to the position of the post of sheriff in 2013, and one of the first things that I did was to sit with my unions and get them at the table and have their voice be more inclusive. And what I found is that when people have that type of appreciation, you know, when you really listen, now you might not be able to do everything that they may suggest, but the fact that they've had a chance to air it out and you've had some real good conversation about it really does make the entire enterprise, I think, work a lot better. And it sounds like when you talk about teachers having that voice, that worked the best for the entire school system. Would that be a correct statement?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I find that when decisions are made without the key stakeholders at the table, there's always questions about fidelity and why the decision was made and how the decision was made. But when there is full transparency and everybody's invited to the table, then you don't have to worry about those concerns. And new implementations or new ideas, new innovations are much more successful when that happens. So I'm the former president of the Revere Teachers Association before I became an administrator.
In full disclosure, right?
In full disclosure, yes, yes. You know, so I think that those things are really important. And I became union active when I was a teacher because I felt it was critically important that good teachers had a voice in what decisions were being made. They're the ones who are impacted by the decisions we make. You know, we can decide whatever we want in central office. The teachers need to be on board if any decision is going to be implemented in the classroom.
How many schools do you have? Elementary, middle, high school? How many schools do you have?
We have 11 schools altogether, 6 elementary, 3 middle, and 2 high schools. We have a main high school that serves about just over 1,700 students, and we have a smaller alternative school that serves just over 100 students.
So what's the total population, student population? It's about?
A little over 7,000, about 7,100.
Okay. And what's the makeup, the racial makeup? Do you have a lot of Latinos, blacks, whites? How does that break out?
Yeah, our majority population is Hispanic. We're about 48% Hispanic students, and our next largest population is white, which is about 39%.
Okay.
And then the other demographics make up the remaining percent.
Do you have English as a second language? Do you place an emphasis on that?
We do. We have a very large population of students that speak English as their second language. We also have a number of ELL, English language learner students, or ELLs as we call them. We're about 17% ELL, and altogether it's about 70% of our kids who do not speak English as their first language.
Did you say 70?
70,
wow.
Yes. That includes the ELL population.
Now, talk to me about early childhood programming. Do you place a serious emphasis on that? How does that work?
We do. You know, it's an area that there's been a lot of buzz in the state about early childhood education. It's an important conversation. Revere, about 12 years ago, went to a full-day universal kindergarten program. And that was a major step. A lot of districts still only offer half-day. If a parent wants full-day kindergarten, they have to pay for it. In Revere, we've had universal free full-day kindergarten for 12 years now, and we feel that that's had an impact. I mentioned before the award that the high school won. Well, those kids are now graduating. So we're looking at increases in performance at the high school just as these kids who were given full-day kindergarten are matriculating through the high school, and we definitely think that that's an impact. We haven't been able to spread that program into the early childhood at this point. We serve about 200 kids in our early childhood program. And, you know, there are varying degrees of emphasis. Some kids are there for full days, 5 days a week, but other kids are only there for a short day, either morning or afternoon session, which is about 3 hours. And some of them only come in 2 or 3 days a week. We have different programs structured for the needs of our parents. But even so, when we see our kindergarten enrollments are between 550 and 600 students, and we're only enrolling about 200 in our early childhood programs, it means there are 400 kids out there waiting another year before they can start and begin their early literacy programs and other things that are necessary for success in school.
Talk to me about parental involvement. Does your school system reach out to the parents and really try to get them engaged and keep them engaged?
We try to. We probably could do better, and we're working with. We have a new position. It's not terribly new. We've had it for about 3 or 4 years, but we have a position where we have a coordinator who oversees district partnerships and after-school programs. And one of the pieces of that role is to reach out to parents and find ways to engage them more and bring them in more. And one thing that we developed in collaboration with the city, with the mayor's office, is a community school where we offer adult education courses at night. So that's bringing a lot more parents into our program and into knowing the schools. The courses take place at Revere High School, so we're able to engage them more and get parents involved and understand that the school is a place. We want the school to be a place where they feel welcome and where their input is needed. We do other traditional things like a citywide PTA that meets once a month with the superintendent and the assistant superintendents, but our participation in that is very small. We get about 12 or 15 parents. You know, with 7,000 kids, we would hope to get more, but we understand that we're an urban district where folks need to be in work, you know, so.
You know, across the country, particularly in tough budgetary times, schools have cut back on things like physical education, the arts, civics, all of which we all would agree are very important to a child's development. Did you guys have to cut back on some of those courses, or do you still have them full bore?
We still have them full bore, but they're not as robust as they could be, especially the arts and the music programs. I know that we used to have a band at the high school. We no longer have a band. I don't know in relation to specific programs how much interest there are from kids, but we know our kids love drama, they love music. Whenever we have the senior showcase or the talent show, hundreds of kids are trying out. So we know the demand is there from the kids. It's a challenge to fund those programs adequately when our funding is so limited, and we have some accountability measures like MCAS or PARC that we need to meet. Yeah,
it is tough. Talk to me about the juxtaposition between the public schools. Well, let me ask you first and foremost, do you have charter schools? And I know charter schools wouldn't be under your jurisdiction. Would that be correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, do you have charter schools down there? Oh, that's
sorry, I'm choking.
Hey, listen, it happens. We have that kind of effect on folks.
We lose about 200 students district-wide to charter schools each year. Maybe a little bit less than that, which is relatively small in comparison to some other districts. We don't have any charters that are actually in the Revere city limits.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
We don't, but we have kids that go off to charter schools in Malden and Chelsea and other nearby districts. Our goal is to provide programs for all kids, and you know, it doesn't feel good when kids decide or parents decide that they need to go elsewhere in order to find what their kids need. And you know, I struggle with the idea of charter schools. I think the intent is very good. If we could have these special schools called charter schools that lived by a little bit different rules and served needs that the public schools were not able to meet, then they would be really beneficial to the whole system. You know, when I think of some of our at-risk kids who are in middle school and contemplating dropping out, and the large comprehensive high school can't necessarily grab that kid and pull their interest back into school, a smaller charter with a different kind of mission and maybe a differently structured school day that is more appealing to a student who's on the verge of dropping out would be really helpful. What I worry about is with a lot of our charter schools, that's not the case. A lot of the charter schools in the state of Massachusetts right now focus on areas where the public schools excel. So the redundancy there of effort, to me, is maybe not the best use of funds. It's an area of concern. When I look at the charter schools that focus on high-performing students, who do really well. Well, we have kids who graduate from Revere High School and go on to Harvard and Yale and Brown. Every year we have kids who go to the Ivy League. We don't need help understanding how to educate smart kids. We need help understanding how to educate the kids who are on the fringes, like I talked about before, or the kids who come to us with interrupted formal education from war-torn countries who may not have been in school for 4 years. And they present as a 16-year-old with maybe a third grade education. And how do we as a public school deal with that? We certainly can't put that child in 4th grade because they're 16 years old. And at the same time, are we doing him a disservice to put him in as a sophomore in high school or junior in high school when he's not been in school for so many years? Those are the kinds of areas where I wish we could focus our charter school energies and really make the whole system better.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I hadn't heard it laid out that way prior to this conversation. That is very interesting. How long is your school day?
Well, our school day varies. We have 3 expanded learning time schools, which means that the kids go to school for about an extra hour every day.
Oh,
And 2 of them, the kids go to school for an extra hour, and 1 of them, they go for an extra half hour and have an extra week of school. So their school year is longer.
nice. Okay.
And we also have an innovation school. It was actually the Paul Revere Innovation School in Revere was the first one in the state. And the innovation school has a little bit of a different schedule also. They have structured their day so that some teachers come in early, other teachers come in at the regular time and stay a little bit later, so the kids are able to have an extra hour of school every day while the teachers work a regular teacher shift. In our expanded learning time schools, the teachers and the kids have the longer day.
I see.
So they're a little bit different. But traditional schools at the elementary level, the kids do a 6-hour day, and at the secondary level, the middle and the high school, the kids do a 6.5-hour day.
Talk to me about summer vacation. Now, back in the day, when this was more of an agricultural society, we had, a month and a half, 2 months of school vacation. Do we still need to have our kids away from school for that amount of time during the summer?
It's interesting. I think that for a lot of kids who are succeeding and doing well in school, it seems that our school year and our hours and our days are serving them well. I think it's what's critical in having the summertime off for a lot of kids is it gives us a chance to really give some special attention to those kids who need a little extra support in the summer. So actually our innovation school came up with a proposal this year. It's going in as part of their innovation plan, so the state still needs to approve it, but they're hoping to run 2 summer sessions so that some kids who maybe are just a little bit below grade level could attend either an early summer session or a late summer session in order to get them up to where they need to be. And other kids who are functioning extremely below grade level could actually attend both sessions and have a lot more continuity in their school year. From an educator's point of view, our teachers are so burnt by the end of the school year. They have such an intense job. They're literally making thousands of decisions every day. They need to regroup. They need time to look at their curriculum and figure out what worked and what didn't work and make adjustments to the curriculum and revamp all of their worksheets and different resources that they've created for students. Revamp their assessments to make sure that they clearly are assessing what it is they want the students to know and be able to do. And all of that takes some time. You know, we're a country where we think teachers need to be instructing kids from bell to bell every day throughout the year. When we look at some of our counterparts in, say, China, for example, teachers spend only 50% of their day instructing students. The other 50% of their day is spent collaborating with their colleagues, refining curriculum and identifying individual plans for students.
And what are the students doing that time?
They're with other teachers.
Ah, okay.
So if we wanted to adopt a model like that, which would be fantastic, we'd need to basically double our teaching force.
Oh, I see.
And so now we get back to the dollars, right?
Right, exactly.
So
what do you think of vocational schools?
I think vocational schools are great. I think that they again, similar to the charter school, their mission has changed a little bit, I think, in recent years, where we used to see a lot of kids who are not college intending would go to the vocational schools and earn a trade in order to, get into one of the trades after high school. That's changed a little bit. We see more kids we see the trade schools doing more engineering courses and offering more advanced level courses that are appealing to even kids who are going to go on to college, which is good. I think that they're necessary. We need to have multiple paths for our kids. And it's important. The one thing that's really important is whichever path the child chooses, they still need to have all options open to them at the end, because those ideas can change very much from 8th grade to 12th grade.
So unfortunately, we've run out of time. I would love to extend an invitation to have you come back, because I would like to talk to you about mentoring programs. I would like to talk to you about bullying that goes on in some of the schools, not necessarily in Revere, but that we hear about that, in general, on the news. And there are other things about education that we would like to talk to you about, principally because if kids are with you and they're doing the right thing and they're getting that education, they're not with us, in the criminal justice system. And that's really important. And so to have a practitioner like yourself on just talking about what it is that you do, how you do what you do, particularly with Revere schools flourishing the way they are, our listenership, our viewership would really like to hear more of that. So I'd love to have you back at another time to talk some more about that. But thank you for coming on today to talk about what we have discussed. It's really been A great education,
Great.
actually. Okay. All right, folks, we're going to go to a break. And so I'd like to thank Dr. Kelly for coming by and talking to us about the importance of school, what goes on in school, and making sure that our kids get that quality education that is really required to really do well for yourself as you move forward. But we also need to look at parental involvement. And we think that that's very important also, to make sure that parents are working with their kids when they can, clearly, to make sure that their kids are getting a quality education, but at the same time, particularly when you talk about maybe an immigrant population, that the parents are also getting, being afforded education. We're out of time, we're out of here. We'll be back again next week. So until then, you take care of yourself. We'll see you soon.